Hi there, everyone. Welcome to my podcast. I'm looking at my notes because I had them at the bottom rather than the top. Anyway, welcome. This is episode 18. This podcast is primarily about my knitting projects. About half of the podcast is about my knitting projects, and the other half is about my horsemanship journey with my two Mustangs, Odin and Bragi. I adopted them from the Bureau of Land Management Wild Horse Adoption Program, and I will have a link to that in the show notes. I also talk about cooking and gardening, since those are some of my other ways that I spend my time, my non-working hours. And then finally, maybe I'll talk about a book I'm reading right now too. So my name is Corrina, and if you are a returning viewer, welcome back. If you are new, I'm very glad that you're here. This podcast is for anyone who wants to hear stories about horses, and maybe you just want to sit and work on whatever your crafty project is while I chat. So I need my glasses to read my notes, and I don't need my glasses to see outside. So I live in the very northwest part of the United States, in Washington State, with my partner, our two little kitties, one of whom may make an appearance because I am rustling around in my little yarn closet, and then the two horses that I mentioned. I'm recording on Thursday, November 10th, 2022. Usually I wait for a weekend, but we are taking off for a long weekend, going to the ocean to see some friends and some family that I have there. So the weather, it's we had summer until mid-October, or maybe just before Halloween. We had summer. And then we had fall for maybe a week, and now it's winter. So the temperatures are cold. Well, for here this time of year, it's below freezing. So that is cold for this time of year for here. Usually this time of year we get a lot of rain. We did get a lot of rain and had a pretty major power outage over the weekend, and I'll talk about that more in the knitting segment of this episode, because it dramatically affected a project that I was working on. So the first thing I want to talk about is this old finished object. And I may have worn this before, but it just happens to go with this sweater that I'm wearing today. So this is the very first cowl that I made. It was made with really chunky yarn. It's the first thing, I know it's the first thing that I knit in the round. And of course I made the typical beginner mistake, twisted, and had to rip it out and start over. So the other mistake I made on this one is I didn't leave enough room, yarn to bind off, so I ended up doing kind of a, I don't even know what you call it, but I just ended up kind of binding off as I went without adding more stitches to that row. So lessons learned, but I really enjoy this cowl. I actually wear it quite a lot this time of year. Hopefully you can hear me talking through my cowl, but apparently you can also wear it like this if you want, but I don't know. I don't need to look like a babushka today, so yeah, it just kind of, it's warm and a bit decorative. So my mom made one. I know I've shown the one that my mom made, and then I made two more for Christmas presents that year for my sister and my niece. So, and that was before I learned that my sister was allergic to wool. I am listening to one of the cats prowling in my yarn closet, hopefully not eating anything important. So, on to the whips. So, I'm going to talk about the sock that I've been working on. This is the second Sockoween sock, even though the Bakery Bears Sockoween knit along is over. But this is the second pair of socks that I'm making. The yarn is dyed by Legacy Fiber Arts. So, and this is their Smell My Feet colorway. So Halloween colors. And the pattern that I am using is called Almondine. So hopefully you can see that. It's kind of a fake cable lace pattern. I just finished the heel turn and the gusset decreases, and I'm starting on the foot, which has the pattern over the top, the instep. So that's my sock project that I'm working on. The Almondine pattern came out of an Ann Budd book called Master Sock Class, I think that's what it's called. I've mentioned it before. It's a really good book. I use that book for pattern ideas, and then I use another book that one of Randy's relatives gave me. She found it at a garage sale near her home in Maine, and thought of me, so she gave it to me. And it's a custom sock book that has all these sock recipes in it, and I have been working through that and really finding the nice custom fit sock for me. One issue that I had was the toes. So unfortunately this book has a number of toe, I knit top down, so from start at the cuff, knit down to the heel, and finish at the toe. And I've had problems where the toe was too narrow, kind of the standard sock recipe that you see, which is a decrease like every other row. So this book has one called the barn toe, and it has more room, and my toes are happier. So I have kind of the standard, the second toe is the long toe, and I don't know, for some reason it just feels like I need to have more room in my socks. So that is that. What I am particularly proud of is, and I suppose thanks to the power outage, is that I have made a ton of progress on my Ghost Horses sweater. So I'll talk about the power outage in a minute, but I just want to show you where I'm at with this. So I'm down on the ribbing, and I probably have about maybe half the ribbing done, maybe not quite half. So I'm aiming for about 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches of ribbing, and then I'll start on the sleeves, which are the same, I think the same pattern as the body. I was kind of getting discouraged about the body because at this point the pattern gets really monotonous. Doing the horse part was really fun, but this part is just, I think there's 4 pattern repeats, 18 stitches, and I did 4. You're supposed to do a minimum of 3. This can be a cropped sweater. I don't care for cropped sweaters. So, and then the sleeves, I probably do, I'm guessing, at least 3 repeats for each sleeve. But what happened was we lost power. In fact, I think I'm going to knit while I tell this story. But first, I want to show you some knitting needles. These are my grandmother's knitting needles. They are metal, and they have this kind of nice little curve in them that actually makes them really comfortable. So, and I'll get to the I got to tell my story in order, so forgive me. So we lost power around midnight on Friday night, and I woke up. I think the change in the light really, and I'm take a sip of tea. The change in the light woke me up, because normally we have porch lights on, and then it's just, there's a sudden change, and probably, you know, like the refrigerator turned off, and you know, it's possible some other things changed, like our radiant floor heating made some noise when it switched off. Anyway, I woke up. It was super windy out. I didn't really notice the wind so much. It was just dark. But the next morning was Saturday, and Randy went to work. He went to the office. The power was on his office, and I volunteer for Pony Club on Saturdays. So I texted and said I was going to be late because I had to fix some fence out in the pasture. So there were a couple of big branches down over my fences, and my horses were a little bit startled by that. They just, whenever, they're great tattletales. Whenever anything's different, they let you know, just in their body language. So, and they kept looking over at this one spot that I couldn't quite see yet because it was still dark. But I went over there with my headlamp, and I was like, oh, okay, I see. There's something different, and the horses are telling me that it's different. It wasn't in their immediate area. It was in an adjacent pasture that I had fenced off for to let the pasture recover from their summer grazing. So it's pretty easy to fix, not a problem. First I thought I was going to have to call Randy and have him come out and help me, but it was actually really manageable. So I got that all fixed, and then I was going to Starbucks, and it was really weird because Starbucks isn't very far away. So usually what happens is I kind of get my phone app all set up to pre-order, and it wouldn't work. And I thought, well, that's really weird. I mean, I have cell service, so the Wi-Fi was obviously out. I have cell service, but it wouldn't work. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll just go. And so I got there, and there were a lot of cars in the parking lot, a lot of cars in the drive-thru. I made my order online in the parking lot, and that was fine. But then I got in there and had to wait at least 15 minutes, which is really unusual. I mean, if you're a customer at Starbucks, they typically get through orders really fast. And but there was just a lot of people in there, and then there's just this murmuring, is your power out? Yeah, ours too. That's why I'm here. So so basically all the areas outside of any town were out. And I heard that I think initially the estimate was like 190,000 people in the county had, or well, I should say homes, residences and businesses didn't have power. So, okay. So I got my coffee, went to Pony Club. All the students were there, which was kind of surprising because some had power, some didn't. The stable itself didn't have power, but it wasn't raining, and it was windy still. So, but there's an outdoor arena, and so we did our lessons outside, and it was good. And I went back home, and power's still not on. Randy came home shortly after that, and then we just lit a fire, and and also my trainer was coming out that day as well to help me with Bragi. I hadn't seen her all summer. So, and I wanted some help working with Bragi on trailer training. So we did that. And I'll talk about that in more detail later in my story. But then after she was gone, and I fed the horses, so that was about, 3 p.m. Randy had lit a fire. I was carrying buckets of firewood from the barn, so I could carry about 8 pieces at a time to the house. We just, thankfully we have a fire. We decided to go out to dinner. So, and based on both of our experiences, in the coffee line, in separate places earlier that morning, it's like, okay, well, let's go now. So we did, and we went up to town north of us and went to a restaurant there and had a nice dinner. And then by the time we got home, it was dark, and and so we just hung out, and this is where the knitting comes in. So it was dark. We had candles. We had headlamps. I was for my sock project, I was in the decrease round. And I just wasn't super confident that I would be able to work on that with a headlamp and candles. So I pulled out this sweater, which was kind of languishing, I don't know, maybe a couple inches below the sleeves. I'm not sure, maybe more than that. Maybe I'm exaggerating a bit, but how it is with telling stories. So I decided to work on this because, for one thing, I was kind of struggling with the monotony of it, of the pattern repeats. But then on the other hand, it's like, well, I can't really do anything else. So I worked on this and got a ton done. Sunday, still no power. And it was the time change, so we are now out of daylight savings and in Pacific Standard Time. So it gets dark at about 5 p.m. And we wanted to get some stuff done in the daylight, so we went to Randy's office because there's a shower there, so we could take showers, charge our devices, and we needed a couple things. It was cold, so the food in our fridge was okay being in a cooler out on the porch, and we'd gotten ice when we were up in Mount Vernon the previous day. Got some block ice to hopefully keep our frozen stuff frozen. So anyway, and one thing we didn't have that we discovered is enough propane, portable propane canisters for the grill. So we had stuff in the freezer that was thawing that we wanted to cook, but we didn't think we had any propane, and our propane canisters were expired. So if you take it to a place where they refill your propane cans, they won't refill them if they are expired. So, just lesson learned on that preparedness part. And before I leave the preparedness part, since I knew the wind was coming, I did fill up the horses' stock tanks. I have 2 100-gallon stock tanks, so I filled those up in advance. And I also filled up a bucket, a 5-gallon bucket for toilet flushing, because our well pump doesn't work without electricity. We also had a couple containers, like 2.5-gallon containers of drinking water from camping trips we had taken over the summer, so that was good. So we felt really prepared that way. Our range in the house is connected to the big propane tank, so that was fine. But yeah, but grilling. So there's just some things you want to grill, like burgers, like ribs, stuff that we needed to cook. So Randy did find one portable tank of propane that was full and currently certified, kind of in the dregs of our camping gear. So yeah, we had really good burgers one night, and with all the condiments and lettuce, and he grilled some bread on the homemade sourdough bread on the barbecue grill, so that that was really tasty. So so that was good. That was Sunday night. He had planned to grill pork ribs, but they hadn't thawed out yet because it was so stinking cold outside. So thought he would do that Monday. Sunday night, we still didn't have power. The power company was estimating that they would have about 90% of, it was something like 75-80% of people restored power by 9 a.m. on Monday morning, and then 90% by that evening. So we hoped we were in that 90%, but there was this huge cluster of trees at the south end of our road that had fallen down over the lines, and that was only one of the clusters of trees that was caused down power lines on our road. So, so we're like, well, we could be in that 10%, but we'll be okay. So we both went to work on Monday, and I have a shower at my office, so I got there really early and took a shower. The horses didn't care. They're still getting their hay and grain, and they had plenty of water, and so that was fine. I hadn't slept very well Sunday night because it was a full moon too, and it was just so bright. Even though there wasn't any power, it was really bright, and of course the cats are running around like like little maniacs, like it's the full moon, it's the full moon. But yeah. So Randy got home. So Randy also went into the office really early. I mean, he went before I did. I got in my office at 6 a.m. and took a shower and started work. Like before 6:30. But he texted when he got home and said that the crews, and that was about 1:30 in the afternoon, that the crews were working on that big cluster of trees at the south end of our road. He also said that it was 59 degrees in the house. So thankfully the day before, he had brought up a whole bunch of firewood, using our little lawn tractor and a wagon, and he brought up like a whole bunch of firewood. But I tell you, it took until we went to bed that night, around 7:30 or so, for it to even get up to 70 degrees in the house. And normally when we light a fire, it can be 75 and above in the house. So that was something. I think that if our, I'm getting ahead of myself. So maybe it was that night I didn't sleep very well, just because I kept waiting for the power to come, hoping the power would come on. Well, it finally came on at midnight, and so it was just kind of funny that all of a sudden, all the lights are on, and everything that beeps in our house beeped. So I had to kind of run around and turn everything, check to make sure, turn off all the beeping. Refrigerator was running, so it was pretty awesome. Yeah, that was wonderful to wake up Tuesday morning to power. So we've had power for a couple nights now. I tell you, it's such a luxury, and we are very lucky to have what we have. So it was nice to have warm running water. It was nice to have, run the dishwasher. That was the other thing, is like the dishwasher was getting really full, because we were eating at home but didn't really have, thankfully when we started we had an empty dishwasher. So another funny thing that happened on Sundays when we were out running errands, we thought we would just get breakfast in town, but we went to a couple places and there was just lines out the door. We said, okay, well, let's go to the IHOP, thinking that they would have a pretty fast, large restaurant with fast turnover time. There were people waiting in the lobby there, and the lady at the hostess desk said that the wait was an hour. I was like, oh my gosh. So we went home, and I cooked. We had bacon, and let me tell you, it's possible for 2 people to eat a pound of bacon in one day. So we had bacon that morning, and we had bacon on our burgers that night. So yeah, so it was pretty good. The other thing that we did on Sunday, is we went into town to, we were out of beer, so we went into town and got some beer and charged our devices along the way. So I feel like I'm just getting kind of the days all mixed up, but I'm pretty sure that's the order that things happened. Was that Saturday we were both out. Randy went to work, I went to the pony club, and we went out to dinner. And then Sunday was when, there was just still a ton of people out of power. The power company's pretty awesome. I mean, they got crews from all over the state, and I think even Oregon, to come and help out. So that was pretty awesome. And again, it was a little disappointing by 9 p.m. We weren't part of that 90%. But on the other hand, we did have power Tuesday morning. And there are still people getting their power restored. I mean, it was just so serious. And I think when you see the picture that I'll post at the end of this video, I think you'll see what I mean. So anyway, got a ton of knitting done because there just wasn't really anything else to do. And it was cold outside and windy. So yeah, just a couple other straggler parts. The creek behind our house, which we can dip to get water from if we need water for flushing toilets, or we could filter it. We have filters in our camping gear. We could filter it for drinking water. Our creek has been dry all summer, but it's kind of ironic. It just started running again Friday because we had a massive rainstorm on Friday. So anyway, that is my story about knitting and the power outage. I did want to mention these needles. So I had a set of needles, the interchangeable. I think these were interchangeable. But anyway, they pulled apart. So I was like, well, rats. But I have this giant thing of knitting needles that I have to show you that a friend of mine gave me. So this is a combination. This is this really cool bag that it's a knitting needle organizer. It opens up like a notebook. So here's one side. Here's the other side with pockets. It has each where the knitting needles are labeled by their size. It has a knitting needle size thingy with the gauge piece there. I'm just still discovering things about it. There's lots of sets of double pointed needles, and they're pretty small, which is nice. I mean, it's just a huge variety. So a friend of mine got this at an estate sale. There's even this little like plastic row counter thingy. But there's all these little pockets that I keep finding things in. It's pretty cool. I don't know what this is. Does anyone know what this is? If you do, please post it in the comments. But that was in this bag. Also, I have my grandmother's knitting needles, and they're kind of a mess in here. I just put those all in the big pocket. But there's these metal knitting needles, and you might remember from an earlier episode that I knit the Adeline summer top from her needles. And there's also like kind of this rug hooking thingies. I don't know exactly what that is. But there's also crochet hooks of various sizes. They're all metal. I mean, they're really nice. So there's that. Yeah. So just a bunch of different ones. Hero is what the name says. So wide variety of metal needles. There's some plastic ones in here. And there's also the kind of the bamboo ones, which I use. Mostly straight needles. So when my knitting needle broke, I was like, well, I've got to have something in this, lovely case of knitting needles. And I found some straight needles that were the right size, that were my grandmother's, that are about yay long. Here's the one. So it's really hard, maybe impossible, to knit in the round with straight needles. And I was just kind of desperate, so I didn't really think about it too much. But then, as I was rummaging through this bag, there happened to be these circular needles that were the right size. I mean, how lucky is that? So I'm using these nice metal needles with the little curves that feel, kind of ergonomically correct. Yeah, for for my cuff, or the ribbing part of this sweater. So I didn't have to go out and buy needles. I mean, I was thinking, okay, well, I certainly could work on a different project because the power was back on, and I could work on my sock. But you know, I really kind of stuck on this project, and I was getting frustrated that I couldn't continue it. So, but yeah, super lucky. So working on this, and I don't know. I mean, I'll probably I'm taking it with us to Ocean Shores, so probably get a pretty good start on the sleeves this weekend, I would think. So yeah, so maybe I'll have something to show next time. All right, that's knitting. I still have the Lola top by Kutovakika, made out of the repurposed cotton yarn. It's in a timeout for now. It's a summer top. I do want to have it done for when we go to South Texas in January. I'd like to be able to wear it, or who knows, maybe I'll finish it down there. But that's in a timeout just because I'm focusing on this right now. I'd really like to have this sweater done. Probably not Thanksgiving, but who knows? Maybe by the end of November, I'll have it done. So yeah, and then I can cast on some of those other projects that I've been talking about for a long time. So I have the next segment I call Ripped Out to Start Over. Nothing. That's good news. So we can move on from there. And then I've talked about the cast-ons that I hope to do. So the Love Note will be after this one. The Owl Cowl by the Bakery Bears, and then another sock pattern once I finish the socks that I'm working on. So the sock pattern is a free sock pattern from Knit Picks by Amy Snell. It has kind of a kind of an ocean theme, but you know, I've shown it before. I'll show it again when I get it cast on. So and bring you all along on that. New acquisitions. Oh my gosh, this is just ridiculous. So I didn't do the Stephen West mystery knit along shawl, but I followed along. I watched his videos. I've never really paid much attention to Stephen West. I mean, of course, I've seen him on social media and stuff, and I know lots of people are big fans, and rightfully so. He's an amazing designer. But I started watching some of his YouTube channels, and he was going through some patterns, and I was like, oh, I have to knit that. I have to knit that. So I made a big yarn order. So one of them is a shawl. It's a brioche shawl. I don't remember which one it is, but it's got 4 colors, and the colors I chose are these. So these are all Knit Picks yarns. So I think those will be really pretty together. This is Fingering Weight Gloss is the name of it, and it's velveteen. So that's one project. The other project I'm going to work on that's his is, I think it's the Pierre sweater. And I picked some. This is Gloss and Swish. This is a DK sweater. So let me get the color. I think it's also 4 colors, or maybe it's only 3. It looks like it might be 3 colors. So these are the colors that I picked for that. This is Gloss DK weight, and this is Swish DK weight. And one of the kitties is very interested in my yarn, so yeah. So I don't know. Those projects are so far down my project list because I have all these other projects that I want to cast on that are just kind of languishing. And then I thought I want, I have this cotton jacket that I wear all the time to work. And I was thinking that why don't I knit myself a jacket? So I was looking up a Kate Davis cardigan. No, jacket. It's a jacket. And decided I would knit it in this gray color. So, no, you don't need to eat that. Yes, thank you. Yeah, thanks for sharing your opinion about that lovely yarn. It's tasty. So I got this DK Kotlin yarn. This is also a Knit Picks yarn in this gray color. So that will eventually be a jacket that I will wear. So those are the major acquisitions. I'm going to put my needle case on top of the, well, and I just had a little bit of a disaster, but kind of scared the kitty away, so that's good. But just sort of protect my yarn a little bit, and I'll put the knitting needles away later. But my final acquisition, and I belong to the Freckled Whimsy Yarn of the Month Club, and this is Spells and Things. This is a Harry Potter themed yarn. So sorry for the crinkling, but here it is. Very pretty. So these will be striped socks eventually. So yeah, I guess I better get busy because my yarn stash is certainly growing faster than the amount I'm using. But once I get this Ghost Horse's sweater off my needles, hopefully things will go a little bit faster. So, well, I am at 35 minutes. I was going to talk about gardening is really slowing down because of the cold. So I cleaned out the tomatoes. I have a few tomatoes that are in the fridge that there's a recipe from Smitten Kitchen that uses tomatoes roasted with brown sugar and that you whirl into tomato soup. So I may do that. Probably I might have time today to roast those tomatoes and at least put them, you know, kind of get them ready for whenever I can do that. But we'll see if I can do that before we leave this afternoon. I do have to work a little bit, and I also have another appointment I need to attend, and of course get the horses all ready for our departure. So I have a neighbor who we exchange horse care duties, so she's going to watch him for a couple nights. And let's see, what else? And I just wanted to talk a little bit about two things about horse stuff. So I listened to Dressage Naturally podcast. It's an audio podcast, and it's by Karen Rolfe, who has gone through natural horsemanship training, and I really love her approach. She has some high-level athletes and has been a pretty motivated rider, dressage rider, competitor, and her whole premise is that you can have happy, athletic horses. And that's, I am very concerned about animal welfare, and, at the very least, they are treated fairly. Even our animals that we consume, at least they are treated fairly and have a good life, even though they might be consumed. So I'm not going to get into that because there is definitely some irony about that and contradiction. But I'm human. I crave meat, so I eat meat, but I try to be conscientious about it. Anyway, horses. So her most recent episode, Dressage Naturally, was about what do you do with your horses when you don't have a lot of time because you're traveling, or maybe you have a muggle job, which means a non-horsey job. And she really talked about taking care of herself after traveling and not getting all verklempt about, being away and like having to get back on this program, but taking care of herself and also, giving the horses the focus time that they need. So, and it may be short focus time. It may be just, hello horses, I come out here bearing gifts for you because I'm grateful to you. I'm glad to see you. The same way that you might go visit a relative you haven't seen in a while. Hello, here I brought you things. Or a friend, here I brought you a bottle of wine. So, bring in some carrots for your horses and just telling them how much you miss them and stuff like that. So I have to say that removed a lot of guilt from me for being away and not spending, or when I'm tired from work and not having that time to spend to be with them. So just thinking about themes for both of my horses, and that for Odin, it's really about respectful leadership. He and I negotiate a lot about who's the leader. He was in the wild for his first 6 years of his life. So, and he was a stallion of his own herd, probably, maybe a small herd, who knows. So we negotiate a lot, but I thought my theme with him would be respectful leadership. And that includes setting boundaries. You know, hey dude, you're in my space and you're a big guy and I know you wouldn't intentionally hurt me, but you know, you just outweigh me by like 10 times. So things could go badly even if he did something unintentionally, which, you know, it's happened. I've got a black eye because he lifted his knee, you know, when I was doing something with his foot. So anyway, and then I worked on some trailer training with Bragi. My trainer came out and she just showed me some things that was really helpful. So I just have some themes with him, and that's about trust, building trust with him, and listening. So let's go into more detail. I mean, I know I talked a lot about the power outage, but this is getting on. So I am going to end it here. In my show notes, there are some resources for horsemanship and knitting and gardening if you are interested in the podcasts that I listen to and where I, you know, buy yarn and stuff. So that is it. So have a great day, and if you have any comments, I would love to read them, and feel free to like and subscribe. So until next time, bye. Hopefully I'll have pictures of the ocean for you next time.